It's a great privilege to have you all talking on some of the pertinent topics today that everyone is talking about. All the conferences and the intellectual group is talking mostly about Gen AI and its impact on the transformative and growth journey of any organization. So I'm glad that we have come together. Today I have Rajat, Ajay, Atul, and Sateesh with me, and in next 1 hour, we will be talking about some of the, we'll be taking questions and sort of dive deep on some of the key questions around Gen AI, its applicability in various organizations, how people have used it, and how it has benefited their growth strategy. So with that, Ajay, I would like to bring you in for the first question that I had for you. There's a lot of hype and reality question around, Gen AI. How do you filter this noise and stick true to what Gen AI can truly do for the transformative agenda of an organization and how it can stick close to the strategy of an organization? If you could just share your perspective, experience, or your wisdom around it.
Yeah, no. Thanks, Ashish, for I think that's a question which everyone had in mind, or still have in mind since last 1 year. But there are two or three different aspects about it. So one is, uh, if we go by that Gartner's hype cycle, everything is hype. And when you talk about innovative areas, everything starts with hype before it reaches a plateau and then it becomes a commodity. Uh, and generative AI, of course, is at that very initial stage where most of the companies are and the leaders are just trying to figure out that how can we leverage this to transform our internal organization or business processes or provide more value to our customers and all of that. However, if you talk about this world of data scientists, world of AI experts, this is not new. It had started way back, and most of the work was, of course, done in last decade. Like papers which were released by Google, that attention is all that matters. All of that sort of innovation or the work has been there in existence. So it's not a hype where you would see that it's gonna die in next 2 3 years, like some of the other concepts which had come in last 5 years but are not existing anymore or not moving as fast as generative has moved. So I would say it's not really a comparison between what is hype versus what is reality for generative AI. It's very much real, just that a bigger group of people needs to come on board quickly, and as soon as they come, the organizations, the companies, the Fortune 200 companies, once they start adapting it in their day-to-day processes, it would of course become reality for everyone. I think the one good thing which has happened is, out of 10 companies, probably 3 or 4 really wanted to get into the AI space. In last 1 year after ChatGPT came out, generative AI, now 10 of 10 or at least 9 of 10 really want to do it and they need to do it. Uh, so, and then the second thought is that though we are talking about generative AI, but it does not mean that traditional AI would go away. So the need for companies is to combine both, combine all your existing data analytics, data engineering processes, the governance in there with generative AI and make the best out of it. So for example, if I talk about some of the use cases which we had developed internally in last 6 months, is to ease out the processes of RFP summarization or create the draft for RFP. Now, was it redundant? Yes. Would it go away completely? We probably don't know. We still would need people in there. We would still need, if you talk about some of the other redundant processes, you would need that layer of data engineering, data analytics before it, after it, in middle somewhere. So the best way to approach is and combine that hype and reality aspect of is that uh, understand the depth of the subject, realize that what really matters to provide the maximum business value. What is your business problem? A lot of times, company leaders would come to us and ask that, I just want to apply Gen AI. How do I do that? And we would go back and say that let's sit and define the business problem, and then anything whatever is applicable, we would apply that, be it Gen AI or traditional AI. So I don't think it's a question of hype versus reality. It's the question of what provides the maximum value for your organization, and just go ahead with that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I agree to what Ajay said, and just to add one more point to that, right? The hype and the reality. Generally, as you say, hype means people start thinking that this is the next big thing, and it is going to solve all your problems. I will look at it as a hype. In reality, what I see is that a lot of organizations at a management level are looking at this as a next gen AI, as in or next AI, next level of AI. So they are saying, I already am using AI. How do I take it to next level and use that additional uh, features and additional things that are coming my way, so that that is the reality. We are just taking it as AI 2.0, Gen AI, at least in some of the bigger enterprises and organizations.
So this is
Yeah.
like acceleration story, right? I mean, how do you accelerate from all your emerging tech use cases to the new toolkit? Good. Hey, Rajat, anything that you
Yeah,
would
I
want to
think
add from your
maybe I can.
perspective?
Sure, Ashish, I can come in here. See, I think talking about hype and reality, I think we have to make this as a reality. When I look back, or if I just define Gen AI for us, how would that can be possible there? It would be, what are some of the areas on how to win in with Gen AI coming in? Now, we generally see in the market three broad archetypes where people are winning in this way. So the first one, I would say, here and now, I would say deploy, which means that your ad hoc use cases, your quick wins that you call it as Microsoft Copilot, GitHub Copilot, those things are coming out fine and giving us a degree of productivity to the organization. I think 80-90% of the organization have already done this kind of a checkbox and realizing the value. The second one, which is a bit of a challenge, would be reshaping the function. Can we use Gen AI and AI? And in fact, I would even push that the amalgamation of multiple technologies, just like Ajay mentioned, can we bring it all together to reimagine a function, be it sales, marketing, customer, or whatever function that we pick up? Can we reimagine and realize a significant higher value, maybe an upwards of 2x to 3x kind of a value that we are thinking about? And the third one is something like a reinvent, where you, let's say, pull out or spun off a new business venture leveraging Gen AI. Now, these are, I would say, the broad areas to win. And if we make these as a reality, we have a significant value to unlock, and the hype curve will we don't have to worry about calling it as a hype, but making it real for us and realizing a significant value.
Okay. Hey, Satish, anything that you would like to add from your perspective?
Yeah, Sash. So, yeah, while we are talking about all the hype, there are certain functions where customers are looking more non-sensitive areas, such as marketing and sales, to kind of utilize the generative AI to create the value. Similarly, the areas like customer experience, and then also, as Rajat mentioned, software engineering is one of the aspect where coming GitHub copilots and other things coming into picture, and then accelerating the software journey. I see these are some of the three areas like customer service and then marketing and sales and software engineering are the three areas which actually low hanging fruits to realize the value, especially with the generative AI.
And this is Atul. So I will add one more area in addition to what Satish said, which I am seeing, which is operations. Right? I mean, since the invention of IT and automation, operations always has been one area where people would like to do that automation. And I think Gen AI is definitely taking me to a level where I can further optimize the back office operations or any operations processes, I'll say, that we are trying to automate. I mean, one good example is you have these ML models that used to require a training, regular training, right? To achieve the automation that we want. I think Gen AI eventually, or to an extent, even today, has reduced that need, and you are able to automate those processes using some of the Gen AI features that are available even today.
Great. Those were real great points. So what I gather is it's not all hype. There is some degree of reality, and then there is degree of adoption that's happening across various enterprises for various functions. And what I also heard is while AI exists, Gen AI can also help you make your core better and accelerate your future perspective or future business model. Great, thank you. That was interesting. Let's move on to our next question or next area, which is again a hotly debated topic. Uh, is Gen AI contained only to POCs? And if yes, then what is the journey beyond POCs and beyond the ROI question? When will the stakeholders start looking at it as an investment and not just worry about what am I investing, what are my immediate returns? So the long-term, short-term strategy. So Atul, I would like to bring you in here, and it'll be great if you could just introduce yourself and then share your thoughts around in this point.
Sure, absolutely. So I work with for a company called Chubb Insurance, and actually the work that I'm currently doing right gets to the your real question of what is beyond POC. So currently we are focused on a subsection of Gen AI, what we call a document AI or doc AI. And this is something that we feel will benefit immediately with your large language models, with the chat GPT, whatever the other things that have come up, um, because most of the unstructured data today in the enterprises is in these big documents. I think Ajay earlier mentioned about the RFP process, and as you can see, RFP process has lots and lots of documents and submissions around terms and conditions and contract language and a lot of other things that are there. So we are actually using to an extent some of the Gen AI features in what we call document AI. So we have new submissions coming in. Suppose somebody is requesting a new policy to be created. Um, those documents that are coming in, we are using some of the Gen AI models to quickly understand and do the learning using the large language models of exactly what those documents contain, what information, additional information I require, so that I can do a quick straight through processing, send the acknowledgement, and create their policies within certain, maybe seconds or minutes at least. So that I feel is something in addition to also what Rajat had mentioned, right? The software engineering support is where we do see Gen AI being used beyond POC. Um, a lot of documentation it still exists, and especially in the industries where right, like finance and insurance and some of the other industries where a lot of governance is there, a lot of um, laws and regulations are there. You definitely have a lot of that unstructured data, and large language models and the new innovation, new algorithm around that is going to help us. And I think that's where we should move from just doing the POC to where we can start getting or at least seeing some ROI.
Yeah.
Great. Uh, Rajat, do you think you have anything else to add in terms of beyond POC and ROI questions? How is an enterprise embracing Gen AI?
Yes. In fact, I would even flip the question that what are some of the drivers which are leading to a successful ROI or a at scale implementation?
Hmm.
What we are seeing is there are some learnings that we have seen across industries, across companies, as how Gen AI has been able to give a positive ROI to these programs there. And I think some of it is already said. To start with, The first approach has to be more of a business led. Many a times we end up as Ajay also mentioned, the start happens to be okay. I want to implement Gen AI rather than there is a set of issues or a problem or something which I can do better. Can AI and Gen AI work together to help me solve that? So the business first lens that was critical on this. The second, I think what we have seen as one of the drivers for successful implementation was focus on small number of high value and high impact use cases, irrespective whether it's a combination of AI and Gen AI and other technologies. We just cannot be held only, okay, if it is only Gen AI, then only I'll use it. We should be smart enough to leverage AI, Gen AI, and other technologies to deliver a significant impact. That is what has always led to a positive ROI and a high degree of adoption. The third, I think I would say that the biggest impact is actually on the augmenting workflows. I think Atul summarized it beautifully when he talked about the processes being automated and a significant value is getting unlocked. Similarly to my earlier point that we need to think of a function getting transformed in an end-to-end manner, then only a significant value would be there. Otherwise, one-off use cases, they are good to go, but they may not result the right set of value that the CEOs or the boards are looking for. Few other quick points, I think maybe preaching to the priests here, but starting and augmenting the existing LLMs, be smart enough that do you really need a large language model or can you live with a small language model as well and make things work in your favor? Last but not the least is, I would say, is running the last mile. I think all this users, the end user is not a machine, but a human being like you and me. For any Gen AI or AI successful program, I would say the equilibrium is that 70% is your people, process, and the change part, the human element, the software element. The remaining 20 and 10% is your algo and data. So focusing on the people, the change, the process has the potential to improve a significant ROI for the program rather than just going a tech first approach.
And that's a valid point because it's not that you have to map every use case to LLMs or Gen AI because these are not cheap technologies. These needs a lot of money. And
I think
once, sorry, Ajay, go on.
I was just continuing on Rajat's, point where that individual use cases might look like that, yeah, they are reducing the redundancy or improving some processes, but the organizations or the leaders would look holistically, right? They would look from top bottom approach and see that because ROI is not just always associated with money. Yes, it is in a way, but for organizations, they are now driven by values, and of course, it's let's be honest, a lot of it is related to their marketing, but
Mhm.
things like safety, things like integrity, and all of that are really important factor. The ESG, the responsible AI, all of that is there. So one or two use cases probably would not solve or would not let them realize the ROI. But when they start thinking from the programmatic approach, transformative approach, that's when, and I think I'm really happy to see that it started happening. And in the last few years, people realize the power of this. And of course, it started with the concept which, Atul and Rajat said that high impact, high value use cases. You just see that impact a small effort would make, and then you just want to scale it within your organization across all the verticals.
No, that's a great point. And now we talked about hype versus reality. Then we talked about POC and ROI. Now the next natural question that comes into mind is you bring in these cool, toys to your enterprise. How do you make sure that you are protecting your privacy and security of the organization as well? Because all all these cool toys have a huge risk of data and privacy. And I think we heard the situation that happened in Samsung. So it becomes more pertinent that we talk about how do we go about setting up guardrails or toll gates around right usage of this technology for enterprise so that the risk of losing out on this technology is minimized. So for that, Rajat, I want to bring you in. If you could just introduce yourself and help us give your perspective on how do we set the guardrails, manage the chances of risk and failure?
Sure, sure. Thanks. I'll start with a quick introduction. Rajat Mathur, I'm a partner with Boston Consulting Group. I lead the AI and Gen AI offering for the India market for BCG. Now, coming to your question, like how do we ensure that we have the right set of guardrails for Gen AI? So, first of all, thanks for the question. I think this is a very pertinent and real question that a lot of CEOs and the board are asking. And frankly, I think to set it up, the onus is on us as leaders of this organization, the leaders of our respective organization, to come up with the mechanisms and ways to do AI in a more responsible way. Gen AI risks are quite high. I mean, it has a even have a risk of a reputational risk. Plus, there's a significant other risks, such as we all have been talking about this, be it shadow AI, misinformation, hallucination, copyright challenges, biased outputs, and the list can actually go on. But I think we have to come together and think of a right strategy to have a responsible AI framework in place for our organizations. I think few things which have worked well. I'll just share some of the best practices, and I'm happy to take up inputs from other folks as well. And what things have worked for other organizations is first putting up a place for responsible AI principles. Just working together across the organization, defining, refining the principles, being transparent, being open with all the team members, educating them that this is the risk that we are running there. That's the first part, having the right principles and the guardrails quickly in place. The second comes in your governance processes. Now, what does that mean? Governance processes means, let's say, setting up of the responsible AI committee, defining the set of roles, responsibilities within the divisions there. Within each division, be it marketing, customer, you need to have those kind of a roles and responsibilities being defined there. Having regular responsible AI cadences reviewed at the top level, be it the CEO, reviewing that and ensuring that we are doing the right things in the right manner. The next would be to establish, let's say, an architectural and data controls, be it in a control manner, accounts for architectural control when deploying new models. If you have right set of vendors, then ensuring those vendors also adhere to these frameworks, or for that matter, if you need to onboard some additional vendors or even technology which ensures that there is a commitment to the RAI, then let's go for that. Last but not the least, just like I talked in my previous point as well, we have to foster the culture of responsible innovation. It's a people part as well. Deploying sandboxes to experiment with the tools in a very safe manner, promote the forums and have, let's say, the safe places to ask the right set of questions if you are in any doubt. Set up and have regular awareness programs, the code of conducts, the trainings, and so on and so forth. So these are the, I would say, 4 5 elements which are critical to have responsible AI going in and ensuring that you realize the value in a more responsible way rather than always having a sort of a risk hanging on your head.
A great point. Thank you. Ajay, anything that you would like to add from your experiences around the RFP and other things that you have done?
Yeah, yeah. So, we started building responsible AI as a practice 2 3 years back within organization. Since this is our consulting team, we really want to have a set of principles and guideline to which we can go and share with our clients, right? And as Rajat explained, it is very important that we have everyone follows that within data science team, the development team, as well as people who are sponsoring these projects. However, it's so challenging. One framework would not apply to every industry. You have to come up with different frameworks, different methodologies for every industry. Second, we got people involved. So we are at a stage in AI world where a lot of people are getting and going to be impacted. And in my view, it's just the tip of that iceberg, where we are starting utilizing AI in its real potential in LLMs, but it's just gonna grow. So first, it's difficult. Second, at the same time, it's very important that we set up these guidelines. So uh, I mean, it's challenging. There are so many researchers with whom we are working on, and there are a lot of guidelines which all of the enterprise companies also coming out, they are coming about with all of that. But it's since there are so many human elements involved, it's difficult to define those guardrails. But it doesn't mean that we should not go for it. We should definitely at least create that ecosystem or mindset among all the developers and sponsors that this is much needed thing. Without it, your ROI might look temporary. Ultimately, it's gonna cause more trouble later down the, in next decade, if we start to not, if we do not take care of it at the moment in right way.
Understood. Yeah, having right checkpoints, having right forums where you could share your experience, or even creating that user experience, beta user experience group, so that you can find those early signs, so that you avoid um, any undue risk getting exposed. Because the biggest problem is once the models are trained on that data, it stays, and the moment it is exposed externally, your data is out. So I like that idea of making sure that the human element is kept alive, and they understand and become the first line of defense for such technology. Great. Atul, Sateesh, anything that you would like to add in specific points around controls?
Yeah.
So, yeah, go ahead, Satish.
Yeah, some of the aspects what we have seen even with the narrow AI or as well as generative AI is the clear definition of policies and the roles and responsibilities. It's a more like a clear RASI matrix to be defined. Who should be responsible for what, and all those things would be very important. And the other aspect is more about uh, guiding everyone in the organization in terms of what are the do's and then don'ts, and then educate and empower on the generative AI in terms of while generative AI brings in a lot of value and then everyone is enthusiastic about it, but at the same time we need to educate and then empower on the generative AI to see that what works and then what doesn't work, and then also have a governance council typically to kind of look into all the different aspects like monitoring and then auditing perspective, and then clearly defining the policies. Maybe a governance council is something should be set up in place to able to have the right guardrails and then define policies across the organization.
So, one slightly different point. This is Atul on this one, right? I think all of the panelists mentioned about the governance council. I think for enterprises, the governance council is possible. I can also set up data governance, data quality, and a lot of whatever do's and don'ts as we have. I think the bigger challenge would be uh, as Gen AI is available to people outside the organizations, right? The individuals or the people, as a developer, I can use it without any control. So overall, how does that ecosystem set up a guardrail? I mean, we have challenges even today where we say, oh, there is some content on YouTube or on Twitter or X or in any other social media. How do you control that? I think the guardrails and the larger governance on what can and cannot be done needs to be defined by the overall I will say IT ecosystem. Then we will actually be able to feel that okay, there is some control over it. I think within the organizations, within Fortune 500 companies or even mid-size organizations, they will try to protect their data, will have the data quality measures in place and the governance in place. I think it's outside the organizations what happens with Gen AI. I think that will determine how this journey continues.
Yeah,
I
and,
think I
and
would
you
agree on this part, especially that now, of course, enterprises is one part which is spot on, Atul. But I think as a larger ecosystem, as a country, as how should we be thinking about the responsible AI framework for India? A lot of countries are already working on this, have already worked or maybe cracked to some extent. But frankly, I think We had a good start with the bill coming in, but I think we still have some way to go, and perhaps there are a lot of thought leaderships have to go in to create that kind of a holistic approach to ensure that AI in this country is used in a more responsible and in a coherent manner. I think we have the right track. We are on the right tracks. I think some more work needs to be done from all of us.
Yeah, and I was reading an article in Times of India some time back, which did mention about PMO's office, Prime Minister's office, being very, very proactive in terms of having right set of governance, having right set of protocols for both ethical and responsible use of AI. And I think it all stems from things that we are noticing in the outside the organizational enterprise framework, which is your deep fake videos, your scams around altering text and speech. So that becomes another risk and concern, and that creates a little bit of scare around is this really required? Using this tool and getting exposed to higher level of risk. Is the opportunity cost higher than it looks? So yeah, all good points. I think it is also dependent on how first line of defense, which is all the practitioners, all the users are being responsible about what they're using for, being cognizant about not going beyond what's being requested, not exposing the proprietary and critical data sets to these models. Okay, so that brings us to the final question for the panelists today. So we talked about hype reality, we talked about guardrails, ROI, and beyond POC. But what's also important is how do you set this practice in an organization? How do you is federated the right model? Is centralized the right model? How do you make sure that there is some sort of control in the way you spread this across organization? I know everyone wants to help business, but then there has to be some mandate that runs this across the organization. Sateesh, I would like to bring you in and take your point of view on what is right way to actually go about. If you could introduce yourself and give your pointers here, please.
Yeah, thanks, Ashish. I'm Sateesh, and then I'm looking into the AI engineering, the engineering aspects of AI and ML within LTIMindtree. Coming to the question now, whether it is a federated approach or a centralized approach which works well, again, we always say, it depends on the size of the organization. It depends on the way the organization works, ways of working, and other things as such. In both of the approaches, federated and centralized, there are certain advantages and disadvantages, both from the AI and generative AI perspective. When we talk about the federated AI kind of organization, first and foremost, we get is more of a scalable and then efficient models. One of the panelists talked about, instead of getting into large language models, many of the organizations are looking for small focused models which can solve the purpose. We don't want to run like billions of parameters for a certain specific task, because we are going to use those models for certain tasks. For that task, what is the best model to be used? Then that is one thing, scalability and efficiency that brings it. Second thing that comes is more in terms of privacy and security. Means like there are different functions within the organization. There are different business units. They don't want their data to of course, while we are talking about centralized data platforms and everything, certain amounts of data they want to restrict for a certain users rather than getting everywhere. In such scenarios, definitely the federated approach is something which will work. And then other aspect is more of a robustness and reliability. Now, when I take a specific task and then specific function, and then we kind of fine tune our models to that specific functions, definitely the model reliability would be much, much higher compared to the generalized model which we would be doing. So in the org setup, when it is a federated, then the specific business unit can target the use cases which are relevant for them, and then try and fine tune the models that are relevant to them, and then do this. But one of the disadvantage with this approach, and then maybe becomes like an advantage in a centralized approach, is more of an model management. if we have this, seen the history of even AI and ML, it took a lot of time to kind of bring in the best practices, standardizing, streamlining these. Even the practices like ML ops, model ops took a lot of time. Though people are working with the predictive analytics, AI, ML, quite long time, but the principles of all these software engineering principles applying to AI and ML kind of came very recently, or like applied recently, in fact. Now, with a centralized approach, these things can be addressed. Maybe we can put across mechanism to manage the models. We can put across how we can streamline the entire process in terms of scaling the models, and then also bringing the standardization to the processes. Maybe what are the aspects that need to be considered before getting into productionization, what are the guardrails used, did we test the models, and all these kind of things comes into picture, and then brings the quality and then efficient model management. So these are the advantages of the centralized Gen AI organizations, and then while the federated one has the other advantages. So we should able to balance and then say that certain tasks we need to centralize, and then certain tasks we need to kind of federate, so that the business units still innovate and then still work with the different cases and then continue to.
Great. So that's like a mixed approach where you choose what works best for you in certain areas and decide your approach towards it. So great point. Rajat, anything that you would like to add from your experiences working with
Yeah.
big customers and clients?
Sure. So I think if I were to start with, I totally agree with Satish. I think one of the big points that it has been emerging out is the hybrid approach. But while writing a strategy or AI strategy for your clients, one thing that emerges out is that how should it be structured, be it federated, be it centralized, a hybrid there. Frankly, there's no one silver bullet or a one answer that fits all. As Satish also mentioned, there are pros and cons for each of them. So you really have to evaluate that in the context of the client or context of the company in which we are working upon. I think one thing which emerges out consistently is that whichever way you go, it has to deliver a maximum business value, a maximum business adoption. For instance, in larger organizations, it can be federated. So, for example, marketing, risk, they need very specific data scientists who have both the sides of the who know both sides of the world, be it the depth of data science and a good degree of marketing or a good degree of risk. It's needed there, it's a need of the hour, and doing so would have a significant value uplift there. Vis-a-vis in some other organizations which are still budding in, a centralized unit would just significantly of great help. There would be data engineers who will be able to cross leverage the data from across the functions. The data scientists can actually have a better cross learnings, which so that they can have a faster go to market to the business, and the adoption and the value would be a lot faster. So, as I said, there is no one answer there. One has to really reflect that in this organization this is what our strategy is. These are the top 7 use cases. These are the functions that we are within that we are disrupting or looking for a value there. And for that, if we need a centralized place, then let's go for it. If not, then let's be smart enough to have a federated one. Or worst case, there is no harm having being hybrid. All in all, this structure has to give a rupee value or a dollar value. And that's what the key should be.
No, I think that's a good point. Hybrid is useful. At least in my experience, I've seen hybrid works better because there are nuances around central. You don't want business users to just go and create applications or programs or algorithms where you do not have a control over what data points are being used, which all system it is touching, and it can be difficult to then control that situation. So I think pick and choose is right. Hybrid
Right.
works. Choose the activities that doesn't have a risk of risk on organizational assets, data, or application. So yeah,
And gives the
that's a great
maximum
point.
value.
Exactly, and yeah, gets the maximum value. Or maybe when you're crawling, you make it more centralized. When you're walking, just loosen a bit, and then when you're ready to run, open it. Right. So that sort of checkpoint will be great. Ajay, anything that you would want to bring in from your experience?
Uh, I think Satish and Rajat summarized it very well. I would just say that organizations or anyone who is getting into this process has to be agile. You know, they just need to think from the value perspective, the adoption, and then adoption also takes me back to that first question, hype versus reality, because all of these things when we talk about, because in a way, if you look at it, the federated versus centralized, it's a change for, say someone who is going to manage these models in production. So say there is an IT team who's going to manage this and maintain this. For them, it's going to be something new, and the change management has to follow, and there is a team which is going to be in place, and that adoption journey is going to be another level of struggle. So be agile. There is always an inflection point where your value versus your investment start making sense. Initial level, there would be a lot of new things coming out and you would want to deploy, but there is no one on the other hand who's going to absorb that change. So that inflection point, once it reaches, that's when you start thinking, okay, and that's when you really can become agile as well. Otherwise, until then, just go with whatever makes the most sense. Don't create a lot of friction. It's totally, your business. You have to manage and you have to keep all the elements in mind. So federated versus centralized, I think totally up to the business use case to choose a one.
Great point. That's useful. I think we had good run at some of the top questions or some of the top, hotly debated topics in marketing industry. Before I let you all go, I just wanted to make sure I have one question for all of you. What is one thing that has worked really well for yourself, for your organization in the in the interlock of Gen AI in the transformation of and growth journey? If you could just throw some nuggets on it, like maybe one statement around what's worked best.
So I'll start. This is Atul. So as I think Ajay said in the beginning, right? Initially, when AI and ML came in, there were probably maybe only 3 out of 10 organizations who were thinking that, hey, I may be able to use this. How do I use it? Essentially, the adoption across the industry. Somehow Gen AI has hit that sweet spot for most of the organizations, where they feel that now they cannot just sit on the fence, and they need to participate one way or other. Yes, we do have to make sure that we are not doing it for the sake of just being part of the new trend. But one thing that I am seeing is quite a few even big organizations, ones who are even slow to adopt to certain changes, have the legacy systems in place still. But they are absolutely interested in getting into the Gen AI and see how it benefits, because I think to some level they have realized that this will in the long term benefit the organization, will have a uh, you know will take them to a growth path. So I feel the excitement around this, and more participation even in my organization. I see this has not remained only as a technology initiative, right? In our IT world, a lot of these hype cycles, what we have seen is that they remain as just a technology initiative. But I do see a lot of businesses are interested. They are ready to invest their time and money. And when people on the ground who are going to benefit are also interested in participating in this particular technology, definitely the results will be positive and great.
Great point. I mean, this question is open to everyone, so whoever wants to share their point of view.
So maybe I can go next if that works.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think if I were to summarize and not just one but few things, see the first thing for me, Gen AI is has to be on the value side. It's a new tech, of course, it is new tech, but it has to deliver a value there, and of course, people like us have to be at the forefront to ensure that it delivers the value. Where it comes down is that we really have to be value focused in identifying, let's not just some sort of ad hoc use cases, but I would say, as Atul also mentioned, and I also talked about previously, is that either you have to take up a function which you can disrupt and realize a significant value and extract a significant value there, or have some augmented workflows or a process that kicks in, and then people can actually see a significant value unlock coming in. The third, I think I would say, and Ajay had started off pretty well with that point in the first part, which was it's a combination of predictive and generative AI, which will lead to a significant value unlock. And I generally see predictive as a left brain, which does all the heavy lifting. For instance, your computation, your algorithms, your all your ML models on that front, and the generative part as your right brain, which is like, okay, there is a recommendation that needs to go in there, in what creative ways it can be given there, and what kind of a right messages, what kind of images that we needs to be leveraged to ensure that the power of that recommendation engine gets unlocked to the max. So just like you need both your brains to have the right set of decisions, you need both these things coming together for a right or a transformative value. And last 2 points, I think it's the people part is critical there. The 70% is still people, your change, your processes. You really cannot have a successful adoption without having a degree of change management, running the last mile, which is super critical on that front. And to conclude, I think we all talked about responsible AI and graduating to the right set of governance mechanisms to ensure that we deliver this in a more responsible way.
Valid points. All great points. Ajay, Satish, any last comments?
Yeah, to add to Rajat, yeah, definitely AI, generative AI made that AI has moved from the technologists to the business teams, and then business teams interested in terms of how we can generate the value quickly. At the same time, we also need to look the combination in terms of when we completely go in that front in terms of, hey, can we use this model in such a way, and then all these things. But at the same time, scalability is also important aspect. And then everyone today doing proof of concepts. Even forget about the generative AI. Even in the older era of AI, only 20% of projects actually gets into the production, and then remaining 80% maybe lies within the data scientist notebooks, or maybe not able to showcase the value, and then there are a variety of the problems. Now, for us, it's also important to kind of not only showcasing the value of the generative AI through POCs, but also have a scalable and an adaptable model in terms of bringing in the aspects like model ops, LLM ops into the picture, and then how we can bring these POCs into the reality and into the production, and then make the value realization quicker and then faster. Maybe this is something which I would be add to what Rajat and others mentioned.
No, that makes absolute sense. Ajay, any last comments from you?
Yeah, I would just, coming from the technical background for most of my career, there always had been a struggle when the key sponsors would always ask, okay, what's the immediate business value in next 3 months, 6 months, 12 months. The one thing which generative AI as a technology has done is convince people that if you put money or investment into right opportunities, it would give you the benefit. I mean, it just has boosted the confidence of innovation across the market. Gen AI innovation has been going on for like last 8-10 years, when initially a lot of folks who trusted in this technology invested in that research organization, and a lot of other companies of course were doing it. But when you see your family or mom asking about, hey, what is LLM or what is chat gpt, you know that technology has gone to beyond enterprise and but to public, and where it has reached that point that now everyone has started taking it seriously, and that innovation has really realized the public value as well, and that is very important to me. So that is one major change which I'm very happy about. The second point, and I would conclude with that, is the when we look at the risk matrix, companies are actually divided into that, different quadrants. If you put the stakes versus risk, there are still companies who have high stakes and high risk, like medical diagnosis, or the legal advice, or production level code changes. Can you do it with generative AI as of now? Probably not. But then on the other extreme, you got a simple draft of a public post or LinkedIn post or Twitter or something, social media and all of that, which is not as high risk, and you can always go and edit that back. Most of the companies are basically somewhere in between. And good thing is that they have started realizing the value. They are just at the cusp of making that change. And that is how the overall positive environment has built up in last 1 year, and people just need to capitalize on this sentiment, the sponsors, and they just need to, ride that hype wave, make it reality within their company, and go together, making all the things under responsible AI umbrella, to make sure that everyone is secured enough.
And you're so right. ChatGPT and thanks to OpenAI and Sam, I think this has become the most pervasive, technology in recent times. So we'll see where it takes us, and I'm sure there's a great future. But I just wanted to take this moment to thank all of you coming out on a Saturday morning, taking time out of your busy family times. I know weekends are for family, but really appreciate it. I'm sure audience listening to this will get some clarity on the journey of hype versus reality. What are some of the key guardrails that an enterprise should be putting forward? The federated versus centralized question, and horizon beyond POC and ROI. So I really thank you all, and look forward to speaking with you soon. Have a good day, gentlemen.
Thank you,
Thank
Ashish.
you. Thanks a lot,
Thank you,
Ash. Thank you,
all of you.
everybody.
Yeah,
Bye.
bye.